Attention Big Blue Nation. Welcome to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now, a unique exploration of America's paramount collegiate hardwood program, featuring anecdotes and memories from the 1950s forward to the very latest on everything UK hoops. Kentucky Basketball Then and Now seats Wildcat fans front court and center. Here's Lexington native and SEC standout Gary Waddell and Owensboro native and Rupp Front senior student manager Mike Harreld.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now. Again, I'm Gary Waddell. I've got Mike Harreld with me. We're all in three different places. And then get Tom Gray. Tom, I know, is in northern Kentucky where he lives. Not sure where Mike is, but it doesn't matter. But you got all of us. And I think we've got a show that'll make you think and reminisce a little bit. So, Tom, you and I particularly were talking about losses that the exciting wins that UK had in Memorial Coliseum, which there were many of them. And you and I talked about ones that were in our era starting about 1960. And I have two or three to come to mind. One that I didn't witness or was too young, but I heard all my life about the Vern Hatton shot that beat Temple at the third overtime, I believe it was, buzzer.
I was listening on the radio to that. That was amazing.
47 feet they determined, and unless they've redone the floor, there's a little plaque you've, I'm sure, walked over, Mike, a little round plaque that shows exactly where he shot it. And have you ever seen that there in the Memorial Coliseum floor?
I'm aware that it's there. I don't remember seeing it. It's pretty small.
Okay. It is small. It is small. But that was certainly, I think, one of the more exciting games that they had. And then another one that I do remember, because I was old enough, and they said one of the best games ever played in Memorial Coliseum was Kentucky versus Ohio State. And yes, that was 59, the year that Ohio State went on a couple months later to win the national championship. Their great threesome of Siegfried, Howell, and Havlicek were all sophomores, all freshmen, all sophomores. You couldn't play all sophomores at that time. And Jerry Lucas, how could I forget him? But Lucas came through for them, had 36 points, but Kentucky won 96-92. And they said that was not only exciting, but they said one of the best played games to be played there. And a hero for UK, listening to it, and I remember Claude Sullivan talking about how he's going to war in there, but Carol Burchett from Flat Gap, I think it was, up in the mountains, but he came up with some huge rebounds in that game. He only had 11 of them, but I think many of them were at crucial times late in the game. Also, of course, Don Mills played pretty well, and the UK guys. But Bill Lickard had a good game, got 24, I think. But that was a very exciting game. What about you guys? What comes to mind when you think about some of the more exciting games you listened to or witnessed?
Well, for me, it is the last game at Memorial Coliseum when we came from out of nowhere to beat Mississippi State in a 1-point overtime win. I still don't know how we came from, I think we were 7 or 9 points down with a minute to go. I still to this day can't figure out without a 3-point shot how we did that, but we did it. And it was exciting. The Mississippi State players were cheering before the game was over. They thought they had it won, and they were yelling at the radio and this and that. And by golly, Cats. And UK had to win that game to get the NIT invitation, which meant a lot to that team because they were 10-10 halfway through, and then they finished 20-10. So that's an exciting one. And then, Mike, another one that you'll remember well, is first UK game I ever listened to on the radio is when the Runts beat Vandy in January of 1966. Up until then, the Runts had won every game, but they hadn't played a lot of really good teams. And Vandy was their first tough, true test. And they had a nice double-digit win. And I still remember listening to Kaywood on the radio on that one. That cemented my UK fandom right there. You remember that game?
Yeah, that was I do remember that one. We shot well. Both Dampier and Riley shot very well against Vanderbilt the two games. They went to the corners, and Larry would penetrate the middle and kick out to one of them at the overhead pass that he had. And as you said, Tom, I don't remember exactly, but seems like that was a game that everybody really got excited that this team's pretty good. And playing weak competition to now or not, this is a team we can get behind, and they did. Every game they kept winning. And but getting back to the Coliseum, one of the great games was when Jerry West was there. West Virginia would play 3 years in a row in the UKIT. And of course, Jerry West played on those teams. And then when he left, it was Rod Thorne. But
yes, I remember both of those well.
Yeah. And,
the other thing that was great, what was the Princeton player that played in the UK? Bill Bradley.
Yeah.
I think I forget how many points, something like 50 that he.
Yeah.
He was just incredible. He would drive to the corner and jump and turn in the air and shoot from literally falling out of bounds because he was all they had. And so every time we had two players on him, but he was just able to get free and score.
UK recruited him pretty hard. They didn't have any luck getting him, but they went after him hard. He was from Crystal City, Missouri, near St. Louis.
Yep. I don't think he had the grades, though, they were saying, to get in Kentucky.
Well, he had the grades to get into Princeton.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I think he could have gone anywhere he wanted. But the game against West Virginia, they played 3 straight times, but West got 34 in one of them. He was just great. In his autobiography, West said Adolph called him, at least at that time, the greatest player he had ever seen. So, and he was pretty darn good. Zeke from Cabin Creek.
Who was this? Hansel you're talking about? No,
Jerry West.
Oh, Jerry. Yeah. He was awesome.
Yes, he was. And Zeke from Cabin Creek. So there are some great games, and we're missing some others. Tom, didn't you have a couple that you thought were right in that category of, as Rupp used to call them, barn burners, when they went down south and played in the little gyms? And he said one match will tear this thing, we'll burn this thing down, and called them barn burners when they were close games.
My senior year, we went to the University of Georgia, and they expected to win, but they were fired up as always and really came after us. And we won, but it was in triple overtime. Cliff Berger hit some key foul shots to keep us in the game. And on the way home, we were flying on one of those DC-3s that the Purdue Airlines provided. And we looked out up over the horizon there in Kentucky, and it was, pretty late at night, obviously, after 3 overtimes and getting to the plane, et cetera. And there was lots of lights on across the state. And Coach Rupp said to me, "Slim, we kept them up tonight. They can't sleep."
Yeah, I remember Berger. I mean, I think he hit 2 to get us either into overtime or into the second, but he had some very crucial shots. And I, for one, wasn't confident he'd make both of them, but he did. And I'm sure a lot of Kentuckians probably, because he hadn't shot a lot of foul shots, he didn't play that much, but he was hit some vital free throws there.
Gary, one game that sticks in my mind is that heartbreaking last-second loss to Ohio State in 1968 when Sorensen hit the 15-footer. That 68 UK team was good enough to go to the Final Four and give UCLA a battle. Now with Al Cindar, Al Cindar might have won out, but that team deserved to go to the Final Four. But Ohio State wasn't even ranked, I don't think. UK was in the top 5, maybe 2 or 3. And so that's one. Yeah,
and back then you only had to win 4 games to win the championship. You won your conference, nobody else went, so it narrowed it down from there to 24 teams, and you win a couple of games, you're in the Final Four, and 2 more, you're champ. And that was a game. I mean, if you can't beat a so-so team on your home court, I'm not sure you really deserve to go to the Final Four. And that was Issel, Casey Pratt, who were really good players, obviously, those sophomores. So that was a tough loss. And Kentucky didn't, as I remember, I was there really as guest of Tennessee, but they didn't have a real home court advantage because I think a lot of the tickets went out to people other than UK fans. But you're familiar with everything else, the floor and sight lines and everything else. But that was a tough loss. You're exactly right, Tom. But pretty good ball, close at the end. But Sorensen hit that jumper from the corner, and that was it.
Most unexpected loss, I wasn't there. I was 4 years old, but was January 1955 when we lost the 129 game streak with a loss to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was good over the years, but not in the mid-50s. They were not a good team at all. And for UK to lose to them was a monumental upset.
Was Wildcat coaching then?
I believe he was.
See, one of the things going on there is there were two coaches that were very effective at getting Adolph upset, and one was Wildcat and the other was Babe McCarthy. And Wack was a specialist. I figured out after my freshman year that he would come up, when everybody's warming up out there, the coaches greet each other. And Wack would come up to Coach Rupp and say and do everything that he possibly could to get Coach Rupp upset and to get him out of his rhythm and his normal way of doing things. I think Wack understood that was an important part of the game, at least for Coach Rupp and getting his players ready. And so I think it was my sophomore year, I had figured this stuff out, and Wack came up and said to Coach Rupp, "Well, I don't think we're going to be able to play, Coach. We're going to have to pack it up and go home." And of course, Coach Rupp wasn't expecting that, and he said, "Well, what's the matter?" And he says, "Well, you don't have a facility here that's following the rules." Said your backboards are all dirty, and rule such and such says that you have to have clean backboards. And Coach Rupp starts sputtering a little bit, and I stepped in between them and I said, "Don't worry, Coach. After you all leave the floor, I'll clean the backboards." And so we got rid of Wack, and that's what I did. When everybody left the floor, I had one of the other managers and my brother that was there hold this ladder so I could get up and wipe off the backboards. And then that was also one of the games where we put the 1-3-1 on them, the sophomore year.
Yes.
That got it going.
Wack. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead. But Wack was really a great guy, though. I got to know him
in
Atlanta because I'd go down to Tech, play some pickup games, and he was a good old country boy and very nice. But he found the thing that would tick Adolph off evidently, and had good success, such as was 142 games straight that UK had won at home, something like that.
129, but close to that.
129. Well, what's 11 games, 12 games?
Yeah. So a couple other games came to mind. This doesn't pop in my front brain, but I did a little research. The LSU UK game in 1970, the home game where Maravich and Issel played. Issel had 51 points, and Maravich had 64 points. And the game turned out like a 15-point win for UK. And you wouldn't think much of it looking back this many years. Well, that was just an easy win for us. It was not an easy win. It was a single-digit 2 or 3 point margin most of the way, and LSU would get a basket to make up for UK's baskets, and they fought tooth and nail until the end when the fouls started to catch up to LSU, and UK pulled away at the very end. But that was a tight game, and the LSU was bound and determined and desperate to finally beat UK with Maravich.
Oh, yeah. Dale Brown. It was in the Coliseum, wasn't it, that Dale took his jacket off and threw it? That was when Joe Hall had taken over. He didn't like the karate defense that he called Joe Hall's. And it was aggressive with Phillips and Roby, but there was no love lost between those two guys, at least back then. But he was a thorn in the side. And one game they got beat, he said, told the press, "So help me, one day I'm going to come back here with bigger and better players, and we're going to whip their ass." Well, he did when he got Rudy Macklin out of Louisville, who was a great get for him, say the least. And his players got better. I'm speaking of Maravich. Maravich's players got better over the years, and I never figured out why would you want to go to LSU and never shoot the ball. But he was able to get some big. Fig Newton was a good rebounder, and two or three others. So, but they didn't give Issel a lot of trouble. They gave me a lot of trouble, but not Issel.
I think they found the magic touch with the Maravich's running mate was a fellow named Jeff Tribbett. So Jeff Tribbett came from Lebanon, Indiana, where his running mate was Rick Mount in high school. So he was kind of used to letting the other guy shoot.
Yeah, he was. He was. Yeah, those were some good old days. I think we're all jumping around here, but one of the things that helped win that last game in Memorial was Larry Johnson. I think he stole the ball once or twice, and of course he was as quick as anybody in the league. He was really quick, and I think he made a basket, stole it a couple times, and to do that, Mississippi State had to make a turnover or two, or they'd never. One back then, you didn't have a shot clock, so if they were handling the ball, they could just basically run the clock out until they got fouled, and I'm sure missed some free throws. But that was everybody thought, what a way to end Memorial Coliseum with a thrilling game that they won like that. So it would have been a shame had they lost. And then the next year, '76, they were down the road a little bit into Rupp Arena, beat Wisconsin the first game there.
Yeah, there were many great games at Memorial Coliseum. I never saw one there when it counted, but I saw a blue-white game there once when Eric Daniels was a Wildcat about 20 years ago. It was fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Mike, would you say, I think it was just as loud at Memorial than it is for a big game at Rupp. Rupp has twice the people, but you were so compacted and close to the floor at
condensed,
Memorial.
Yes, yeah. It was very, very condensed, and it was very, very noisy. I'd probably have to have some kind of noise meter to tell which one was better, but it was a lot of noise in there. And
back then their favorite chant was "Go Big Blue, Go Big Blue" from the students, and that got, which I don't think they used that in "Go Big Blue," but that got very loud after a few times. And had a great home court advantage, particularly because they were so close to the court. But some great games. Tom, we were talking recently, a couple of things that have come to mind that are different now, many, many things different in the game. But one of them was, Mike, and you'll remember when you were the manager, back in those days, if you got picked up 2 fouls in the first half, almost every coach would take you out of the game, save those 3 for the second half.
Yes.
I never quite understood that because sometimes a guy would end the game with 3 or 4 fouls and they would have missed the majority of the first half possibly. And I'm sure that figured in a lot of losses over the years. I guess the coach had to decide how much faith do I have on this player to play smart. But now it's 2, but back then it was 3 typically before. I mean, automatically you got 3, you're out to the second half. And not sure why they did that. Another thing is, when did coaches, as a regular habit, when did they start standing the entire game? That would never, Adolph would stand a little bit if he was mad, and fans knew if he got up and shook his finger at the other end of the court, he was mad. And I think the players knew that too, and got after it more. But now Pitino, almost all coaches stand up full time, which
I think they're just trying to motivate their players and keep them alive. And they, whether it's true or not, they think that every play is so critical and could make the difference down the stretch. So they're just totally into it. Coach Rupp was totally into it. He didn't stand up that much, but boy, he didn't miss anything. And he would come off that bench screaming, "Oh, hell no," and worse than that. At the refs, the scorekeeper, the players. So standing up was not an indication to him of whether he was in the game or not. And Harry was the same way. He didn't stand up much. He would get up when a foul shot was being shot at our goal. Our bench was right under the goal. And he would get up and go over and have a word with the referees. And boy, there was some blue language there. I've always marveled that they didn't run him out of there.
Yeah, I bet he did. Yeah, and probably, I guess, the the most common we haven't talked about. Probably they like the TV time of being, every game's on TV either nationally or regionally now, and that probably factors into it that the coaches like to get their face on TV.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the old Tommy Lasorda. They could tell in a big game on national TV, Lasorda would go out to the mound much more than he would have in just a normal game because he loved the publicity and being shown on TV. Now, everybody's got different things that turn them on, and TV evidently is one of them. To be those, we're talking about people with a huge egos that always want to be on TV whenever they can be.
What was it like shooting what was the background like shooting the basketball in Memorial?
Oh, there's nothing. I mean, you had the on the one basket where the stands went up, the non-Vine Street, not Vine, but Euclid Avenue was the main street in front of the Coliseum. The opposite was fine because you had the older fans. Unlike now, a bunch of the student section is in one of the end zones. And then the other end zone was maybe 10, 12 rows. It was very, very short. I mean, there wasn't a lot of fans on that Euclid side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, it was different.
Yeah, it wasn't anything unusual. The unusual one was Florida, where you played during the day, and UK typically did because they wanted that game to be on TV when the old station out of North Carolina, Charlotte, they only had one game per week. But if Florida, if you had the angle right, the sun would come in and blind player's face, and then Ken Hollenbeck, of course, who came in with Randy Knoll, that real good kitten team. He went through his little skit with all the things you got to put up with at Florida. One, if you get on the inline, you're going to trip over the pom-pom. What they call those things? Come off the pom-pom. And then he was talking about the light blinding you. And he had 2 or 3 others that, we had the smallest gym in the league. And he thought it was kind of comical. And Florida had pretty good success against UK down there. And Pat Riley, you remember this, I'm sure, Mike. Riley always had bad games when he played at Florida. I mean, all 3 of them were bad games, and they thought it may have been because his brother, who lived down on the East Coast, would come up to see the game, and they don't know if that messed him up. But I mean, one game he got 6 points against Florida down there. His career.
It was a tough place to play because it really wasn't a basketball facility. It was just a big field house, and they would put these temporary bleachers up with all kinds of temporary seating. And the fans would get up in those metal seats, and I swore they would probably come down sometime. They would all stomp in rhythm and calling gator bait. And after a while, you'd start looking under your chair to make sure there wasn't an alligator. And the other part of it was very hard to shoot because the backboards were kind of hanging from the top of the facility, kind of out in the middle of the field house. And so there wasn't a wall or anything to get perspective. Like, in Memorial Coliseum, there was a wall not too far away from where the baskets were, and you just kind of got used to that, the way it was arranged in your mind. But in Florida, of course, we weren't there very often, and so it sort of looked like the goals were jumping around on you.
Yeah, the funniest, back when I was there, by far Florida's biggest rival was Tennessee, because they were both good in football, and Dickey, the Tennessee coach, was a Florida grad, grew up in Gainesville. So there was some bad blood there between the two teams. They played each other every year toward the end of the year. So one year, some of the football players, and I'm talking about Jack Youngblood, who was all pro for many years, played for the Rams, and big, strong defensive lineman or pass rusher. But when the Gatorade would spill a little bit, guys would come in, or when they're asked to come in, they'd take the warm-ups off and a little bit spilled. They would take that warm-up and wipe the floor Tennessee guys warm up with their warm up, the Gatorade off the floor, which and they were big enough they knew who's going to stop them, and that was pretty funny. And they didn't like Mears much either. I don't know too many people that did, but Mears was kind of like Dale Brown. He got to be quite controversial and so forth. But it was a different environment. But back then, I'm trying to think. Mississippi State still played in their small gym. Auburn had built their new one, so their gym was 14,000, may have been filled up to about 4,000 or 5,000 for a game. Tennessee had Stokely, which I thought, it was the second or third best in the conference at that time. Vanderbilt had theirs, which is not very pretty, but it was a good gym. It's like Memorial. Memorial didn't have a lot of light in there or a lot of paint. It was just those brown seats, but it was well built and served its purpose very well with a lot of great victories. I'm trying to think. LSU had the old barn, as they called it, where they had horse shows. It smelled in there like crazy. But it was quite a league back then when nobody cared about football. Nobody cared about basketball other than Kentucky, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt.
Gary, I've always read that the old Tennessee gym was a really tough place to play. They had what was called Heckler's Row. The students and the fraternity kids were right behind the UK or the opponent bench, and the hecklers just treated Adolph terribly. You remember anything about that?
I bet.
Same at Mississippi State. They put all these 300-pound football players right behind our bench, and every time Coach Rupp tried to say something, they would scream obscenities, and I mean, it was ugly.
Yeah. At Stokely, though, on the sides, the seats went up very gradually. The rows went up gradually. So you were pretty far distance from the floor when you got up there 20, 30 rows up Stokely. But in the end zones, they were very close, though. It's a totally different way it was designed. And, of course, then you had the tartan floor, which didn't make any sound. And that experiment in college basketball didn't last very long because the players complained, I want to hear the sound of the ball dribbling. And when that happened, they complained and was eventually not built anymore. But Tennessee, I think, was the first, at least in the SEC, to have the tartan floor.
Huh.
They were kind of you probably remember they were kind of pioneers with the show before the game on the unicycle. And I'm not sure they did that when you were there, Mike, but they started somewhere in the late 60s there where, I mean, the Harlem Globetrotters music, it was quite a production, and fans make sure they got there at least 15 minutes before the game to see that.
Mm.
And we would stop warming up to take a look at it. It was quite they had it down pat. A lot of practice time went into those behind the back drills, and they gave as I understood, they gave a scholarship to the guy on top of the what do you call it when you get up on the bicycle and it's 15 feet high? But he had a scholarship only to do that. What's that?
Unicycle?
Yeah, unicycle. Yeah. And that is how he earned his scholarship. Guy from Ohio. I don't think he ever played. Was on the team, but never played. But he was good at that. And anything else to cover before we? Did we talk about the Oscar before the Oscar situation?
Oscar Dickinson. Which would you pick?
Dickerson.
My opinion on that is first come, first serve. If both players are suitable for your team, and one wants to come and the other one's not sure yet, you take the sure thing. To me,
So what's that got to do with Oscar? I don't understand. I thought the question was, is Oscar coming back?
No, the question is, Oscar doesn't have to decide until the end of May, and this Hunter Dickinson wants to decide this week.
Oh, I see.
And it's one or the other, not both.
I haven't heard they've definitely got Dickerson in their palm, but I get the feeling he'll come to UK just reading between the lines and his quotes and so forth. And, of course, Cal doesn't want to be the guy that let Oscar go, but yet he also doesn't want to be set without a center next year, too. So, Dickerson's stats are right at Oscar's. He averages more points, about 18 points, and 12, 13 rebounds. So, I mean, basically the same as Oscar. Oscar obviously got a lot of love and goodwill built up with the Kentucky fan base, but Kyle would have egg on his face if he waits on Oscar, and Oscar decides to go to the G League. So those are tough calls. That's why Kyle makes the $10 million, make those tough decisions.
So, but the decision on going pro, I think you said the last time was the end of May. Is that the drop dead date?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the kid that you're talking about, the other big man, wants to make a decision now. Yeah.
He's visiting. I think tomorrow he's visiting Kansas. And he's also already been he's got 20 on his list and he wants to narrow down. I think that's what he said. So who knows where. And Kansas, like us, is in dire straits for a center this year. So he may feel that's a place to go. It's a little further from home, I guess, if that matters, from Northern Ohio, where he's from.
Dickinson is from Washington, D.C. He played at DeMatha.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
He might have moved to Ohio. I don't know, but he played high school at DeMatha Catholic.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected. By the way, we want to thank Daniel. We have found we're not in there today, but a great studio in Atlanta to do our podcast, and it's called the Atlanta Podcast. He was one of the first to start a studio, and I think that's where some of the top rap music in Atlanta was started, right in his studios. But really good guy, and he's been helpful to us just getting started. So we appreciate Daniel very much. Flexible on the times because we've had to change it from time to time, but good guy. Well, all right, folks, thanks for listening, and we look forward to having you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Take care.
Take it easy, y'all.
Thank you for listening to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now. Mixed by sensational audio expert Daniel Dottridge of Atlanta Podcast Recording with web hosting by Buzzsprout. On behalf of hosts Gary Waddell and Mike Harreld, go Big Blue.